All right, so before we get started, I need you guys to make sure that your name and block are in a corner of one section of your paper. Flip it over. Make sure your paper is horizontal, so that means fatter than it is tall, in order to begin this mastery perspective exercise, okay? So we're gonna create a structure in 2-point perspective. That means that we are seeing the structure or the building from the corner, and that it uses 2 vanishing points. So a vanishing point is an imaginary point in space that it seems like all of the lines are converging to that point. Okay, so to start us off, what I would like for you all to do is very lightly take a ruler, look for about the halfway mark of your paper. You can also drop this a little bit lower if you would like to. And we are going to sketch lightly using our ruler the horizon line. So the horizon line is the line, that imaginary line, where it appears like the earth and the sky meet. Okay, so I'm dropping mine a little bit lower than halfway. I'm keeping it light so it looks like that. Okay, and part of this we will erase later on. Okay, the horizon line also represents our viewpoint. So at this point on either side of the horizon line, I am going to put our vanishing points, okay? So right at the edge of the paper on those lines, on that line, sorry, I'm going to put the vanishing point, okay? We have 2 of them because we're seeing our building from the corner, okay? Now, we're going to start this perspective project by creating the line that represents the corner of our building. Okay, the corner of our building is going to intersect or cross over that horizon line, okay? Now, you have an option as an artist where you would like to put your corner line here. You could put it in the center if you would like. The example that you're going to be following on the slideshow has it shifted over to the left ever so slightly, okay? The more that you put this line toward the middle, the more of the left side of your structure you will see. Okay. Also, the longer you make this line, the slideshow says to make it about 3 to 4 inches long. The longer you make this line, or the taller you make it, the larger your structure will be overall, and the more of an extreme angle you're going to create. Okay. So I'm going to not put mine in the middle. I'm going to shift it over ever so slightly. I'm going to go ahead and draw my corner of my structure so that it intersects, okay, with my horizon line, okay, like so. I'm actually gonna make an edit to it real quick. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller than I drew it on my paper. This you can use medium pressure for because this represents the corner of our building, okay? So we need to keep this line. Sorry about the shaking. Okay, so at this point in time, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna create the basic lines of my structure. And I'm gonna do that by using my ruler and connecting the top and bottom of the top and bottom of this line, the corner line, to both of my vanishing points, okay? I'm gonna keep these lines light because I'm gonna erase some of them later on, okay? So this represents the top of my line here, bottom of my line. I'm gonna go ahead and lightly connect, line up my ruler, connect top of this line to my vanishing point. I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom of this line. I'm going to connect it to the vanishing point on the left first, just because I feel like it. All right. And so I have this set and ready to go. These lines are relatively light, and I'm going to do the same thing for the right-hand side, top and bottom to the right-hand vanishing point. Okay. Now again, you want to keep these lines fairly light because a lot of it you will end up erasing later on. Anytime you connect a line to a vanishing point, it is called an orthogonal. Orthogonals kind of look like strings, and some of them we need to create our structure or create whatever we're creating, and some of them just help us create to the vanishing point and we erase them later on. So right now I have the corner of my structure. It's connected to the left-hand vanishing point, and it's connected also to the right-hand vanishing point. Okay, so this to me looks like a giant kite. And as the artist right now, we're going to start by ending both sides of our structure, we're going to assign a certain amount of depth to the left. So decide if you want this to be a building that maybe just has a small amount of depth, or if you want it medium amount or a large amount, and then similar decisions on the right hand side. Okay, I like to erase the orthogonals as I go because I find them very confusing when I work on a perspective project. So I always keep them light. That allows me to erase them. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the left hand side, and I'm going to line up my ruler, and I am going to pull it back, okay, and assign this side some depth. Okay, one mistake that students make, and again, you are in charge of how much depth you want to assign it, if you want it to be shallow, medium, or larger. Okay, a lot of the main mistake that students make with this part is they'll line up the ruler, pull it over, and then go to trace a line like this to end their structure. What might be an issue with creating a line like this to end your structure? Well, it kind of looks like your structure is like caving in, right? It's falling over. So we want to make this structurally sound. So the second line that you draw here has to be parallel to this one. So I always recommend that students line up the ruler, shift it over, okay, however much depth you want to assign, and ask yourself before you trace this line if it's parallel to this one, okay? And this looks like that. I'm going to go ahead and end my structure right between my two orthogonals here. And I'm going to apply a medium amount of pressure because that represents the end of my building. Before I do a similar decision on this side, I'm going to erase orthogonals I don't need, okay? So I'm going to erase the top one here. I'm going to keep this line outside of my structure. That's my horizon line. It's going to make sure that my building doesn't look like it's floating. But I am, however, going to erase my horizon line inside my building. If my building is in front of the horizon line, I'm not going to see it. So I'm going to erase that right here. Okay, there we go. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a certain amount of depth to the front of my structure. Okay, so the front of my structure is the main part of the structure I'm going to work on. So think the front of a house, a storefront, etc. So again, you can make this narrow, you can make it medium size, you can make it a lot bigger. Right now, it looks like it's receding in space indefinitely, like forever and ever and ever. So I want to hack it off at a certain point, and decide how much depth to actually assign it. I'm gonna line up my ruler. I'm gonna kind of pull it over. Before I trace this line, I'm gonna ask myself, is it parallel or does it look like it's caving in? If it looks like it's caving in, try it again. Pull this over, and I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. Okay, just between those two orthogonals that represent the top and bottom of my structure. I'm applying medium pressure right there with my pencil. Now, before I move on, I am going to erase these two orthogonals I don't need and the horizon line that slices through my building. I will keep the horizon line that appears outside of my building in order to establish a space for it so it doesn't look like it's floating. So the top orthogonal, let's erase it. The bottom one outside the structure, let's erase that. Keep the horizon line right there so you don't have a floating building. Erase the horizon line as it goes through the structure itself. Okay? All right. So something that looks like this, okay? Now at this point in time, we are gonna go ahead and create the pitch of the roof itself, and some windows and doors.